Let's move on to the next topic, and that is Cuba. So we have Miss Eaton and Mr. Holmes will finally be making his appearance. So your 1-minute drill, Jasmine, begins right now. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. The year of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Pass.
They put nuclear weapons in Cuba.
Russia.
Cuba's leader at the time of the crisis.
Pass.
The U.S. president at the time of the crisis.
Kennedy.
The range of Soviet SS-4 missiles in Cuba.
2,200 miles.
JFK assembled this group to meet the crisis.
XCOM.
The capital of Cuba.
Havana.
The number of tracks XCOM came up with to meet the crisis.
6.
Unbeknownst to the Americans, Russian soldiers in Cuba were armed with these.
Nuclear missiles.
Define predicament.
A problem that you are in.
Define unprecedented.
Something that has never happened before.
Define avid.
Pass.
The Soviet leader at the time of the crisis.
Pass.
The U.S. response time to a nuclear attack before missiles were put in Cuba.
15 minutes.
The U.S. response time to a nuclear attack after missiles were put in Cuba.
2 to 3 minutes.
JFK referred to the naval blockade of Cuba as this.
Quarantine.
Very good. Okay, 12. Good job. Okay, Mr. Holmes, are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Track A, we're talking about XCOM now. Track A called for doing this.
Nothing.
The Track F called for doing this.
Full-scale invasion.
If the U.S. had invaded Cuba, this probably would have been the result.
World War III.
At the height of the crisis, the Russians shot down this American
A
plane.
U-2.
The moral of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cool heads prevail.
Define corrupt.
Unstable.
Define reluctant.
Pass.
Define reconnaissance.
Undercover gathering data.
Okay. And now let's go back to some of the what Miss Eaton, since you have some time. The year of the Cuban Missile Crisis.
1963.
Soviet leader at the time of the crisis.
I forgot his last name, but it's Khrushchev. His last.
Okay. And I think that's it. Okay, so 7 for Mr. Holmes. All right, now we will get into our critical thinking exercise. So, Miss Eaton, this photograph, what took this picture?
A U-2 reconnaissance plane.
What is it a picture of?
Is a picture of the missiles in Cuba.
What did it prove?
It proved that Russia had put missiles into Cuba in order to, cause panic in the U.S.
Okay, very good. That's 4 out of 4. All right, Mr. Holmes, here is your question. What do the circles on that map represent?
It represents the ranges of the missiles.
Okay, why were these missiles a threat to the United States?
The missiles were a threat to the United States because every city in the U.S. except for Seattle would be within range.
Okay, why was this picture classified top secret?
It was classified top secret to keep the U.S. citizens from panicking.
Okay, and was Denver safe from these missiles?
Denver was not safe.
Okay, very good. All right, even tie on that. So now we'll go to our debate topic. Should we normalize relations with Cuba? Jasmine says yes, Jaden says no. Jasmine, tell us why we should normalize relations with Cuba.
We should normalize relations with Cuba because it's been 50 plus years since the embargo's been up, and nothing's really changed. Nothing's really been done. Also, Cuba is Las Vegas and Hawaii rolled into one, so it could promote a lot of tourism, as well as we could put an embassy there and we could spy on them.
Okay, very good. So, Mr. Holmes, why should we continue with our embargo and not normalize relations with Cuba?
We should continue with our embargo and not continue relations with Cuba because we should just wait till the Khrushchev family dies to keep them from going to communism. And if we do normalize relations with them and we have trade, they can use their money to buy anything, as in weapons, to attack the U.S. And if and their tourist attraction is run by their military.
Okay, and judges, your question, please. So, Mr. Baker, why don't you ask a question of Mr. Holmes on Cuba, and we will let them deliberate over that.
Mr. Holmes, relative to the Cuban Missile Crisis, can you explain to me the significance of Turkey,
Turkey.
the country of Turkey?
So there was an agreement made with Turkey as a NATO ally. Do you know what it was? And can you explain? So deliberate amongst yourselves. So we did touch on this in the lesson plan, so see if it comes to you. And while they are mulling that over, Professor Young, will you ask a question of Ms. Eden and her team?
Ms. Eaton, 9 presidents, as part of their campaign rhetoric, were determined to get rid of Fidel Castro and later one president, Raul Castro, as president. And yet, despite that failed policy, why were we so determined to get rid of them? What was so absolutely wrong with the Castro family?
Good question. All right, so deliberate that. We'll give you a few minutes. And then after you give your responses, we have one more topic after this. That's our last topic, and that will be Russia. All right, Mr. Holmes, is your team ready? Do you have an answer for Mr. Baker's question about how did Turkey, the country of Turkey, fit into the Cuban Missile Crisis? Do you remember?
Turkey fit into the Cuban Missile Crisis because we had missiles there, and it's close to Russia. So it was just like when Russia put missiles in Cuba, it was a high threat to us because it was so close. So how we take, when we took our missiles out of Turkey, it's like when the Russians took their missiles out of Cuba, it lowered the threat of a nuclear attack on both countries.
Okay, very good. All right, Miss Eden, your answer to Professor Young's question about what was so bad about the Castro family, and by implication his regime, that 9 U.S. presidents have sought to overthrow him.
The Castro family was trying to make a communist state out of Cuba, and like it's the same thing with Russia, how our government doesn't really agree with communism, so it's kind of like if we get everyone to be able to have the same government as we do, it will create less conflict.
Okay.